So hopefully this week coming up will be a little smoother in the, let's say, around the world. Canada, US for sure. Hello, Lynn, number one. Uh, yeah, it's so much went on. Anyways, give it a couple of minutes and we'll get a few on here and we'll get rolling. We're looking at COP30 in Brazil, for one thing. And Pollievre and Carney, of course, he built, yeah, and I didn't have too much on the U.S. this week, but seems we're bordering on the U.S. Kind of what happens here could actually do harm to the United States. I'm sure that the U.S. government is keeping a close eye on Canada. So, okay, let's get going here. COP30. Let's see. Bring this up. I'm going to switch over here. Oh, there it is. Okay. COP30 in Brazil. They took down, let's see, how much was it? They say up to 100,000 trees. And Dennis Fay, hello. Up to 100,000 trees to put in a 4-lane highway. Tens of thousands of hectares of rainforest. Protected Amazon land. And but it's no big deal because they want to get their nice limos out to Belém, I think is how that's pronounced. And it seems kind of hypocritical. It reminds me of, it's like they want caviar, a new car, and a 4-star daydreamer. They want all of our money. And you'll see how much of our money they want. We're talking over $1 trillion. These guys aren't fooling around now. These guys are getting serious. And you know, Carney's right up to his ears in it. And Trump is looking at them and giving them the middle finger. So kudos for Trump. Shame on the Canadian government, of course. So what they did, this is weird. But it's not. It's not. Remember when I think it was over in it was in the Middle East. I'm trying to think of what country it was right off the top, because I haven't thought about this for a while. Sheila Gunn Reid from Rebel News is over there, and she leaned on the charging stations. They tipped over the electrical vehicle charging stations. They tipped over. They moved because they weren't connected to anything. They were fake. Well, what happened here is this is where they're having their big conflag here, and these are fake trees. They cut down, estimates are around 100,000 trees to put this 4-lane highway in, but they put up fake trees, and you can see down here there's the wire stand, the cage for it. These are all props for the people coming in. Belém's fake trees highlight contradictions of Amazon's COP30. Metal trees provide new urban canopy for the host city of the UN Climate Summit in November. That starts Monday, this Monday, the 10th. The para-state government is also accused of building new avenues that have increased deforestation and violated civic rights. Not a big deal for these guys. They don't give a rat's patootie about anybody else because they're just in there for the money grubbers. Colorful trees sprout from the first stretch of the new Doka Linear Park, built in Belém as one of the public works planned for COP30. Up close, it's easy to see what makes them so different from the trees that normally spring up from the ground. Their trunks are actually iron rebar, material left over from municipal construction projects. Well, they're recycling, isn't that nice? and they were covered in vines which wend their way to a treetop formed by potted plants. I bet they're plastic. Didn't they ban plastics? I know Trudeau did. I don't know. I think they were against plastic, but I bet you they're plastic. I doubt if they're silk. These are fake trees, or rather imitation trees, created in an Amazon city largely starved of canopy that has cleared even more trees to make space for UN's climate event. Named Eco Trees by Paris government, the fake trees are the latest anti-environmental controversy involving COP30 in Belém. Since last year, the government has felled large swaths of forest to carry out projects to make space for motor traffic through the state's capital and violated the rights of traditional populations in the metro region. Following criticism, the administration of Paris State Governor Helder Barbalho, Brazilian Democratic Movement, had to change the fictitious trees name to Hanging Gardens. That's a nice moniker, since the tag eco only highlights the reality of a lack of actual trees. So these guys, they just crack me up, you know. The stuff they do and the stuff they try to make us do are just polar opposites, eh? Belém was the fifth among the state capitals in Brazil that most lost urban vegetation from 2003 to 2023, with over 500 hectares removed, according to the map biomass. Now, so that wasn't enough. They had to go in and clear another 10,000 hectares, I think was the number, to put that four-lane highway through. Oh, boy. Anyways, yeah, the hypocrisy is just unreal. Here they are piling up the stumps and gee, they have no respect for life, whether it's ostriches or trees or humans. These guys here doing the work, they're getting paid big bucks. They don't care. They're just in there to make some money. It's a quick cash influx for them. And Modesto, 41, lives every day with a lack of greenery in her city. She is out of bed at 2 a.m. to make savory treats and cakes and load up her snack bike for the day's sales. As the sun rises, she reaches the entrance to the Port of Belém's water transport terminal. They could have come in by, it's a huge terminal, they could have come in by water, but then again, they wouldn't have that nice ride in that limo coming down through that nice new 4-lane paved highway through the rainforest to get in there and tell us all that we got to buckle down. Yeah. Anyways, the park, they had another, well, plunking, where am I going here? Oh, these trees they installed. They put another 100 trees into the Tamandaré Linear Park with funding from the Brazilian Development Bank. Doca and Tamandaré were two bodies of water that were paved over by the, they paved over the water by the suffocating urbanization that transformed canals and dumped waste. So they dumped their waste into the canals and then they paved over top of them. I couldn't even make this up. Now in the city's preparations for the COP30, they will become parks. Nice. And the landscaping solution, celebrated by the government, was to hang plants from metal structures in these areas. An artificial thing like this wasn't necessary. It could have been planted in, it says. You know, this, I gotta stop there. The hypocrisy is just disgusting. And they expect us to, you know, bite the bullet and give me your money, give me all your money, right? And who wants all your money? Well, that would be Antonio Guterres. But how much money does he want? All of it. And I guarantee you, Carney is going to be sending a boatload of cash through the port. And where am I here? What am I doing? Okay. I'm going to go back over here because this is the COP30 agenda. It kicks off with an urgent call to deliver on climate promises and scale up finance. See? They want your money. Our money. We don't have any. And they're going to make sure what we got they're going to take. Thousands of diplomats and climate experts are heading to Belém in Brazil's Amazon for COP30, the latest round of UN climate talks. Their task couldn't be clearer. Turn promises into action and agree on tougher plans to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Mark Carney is 100% on board with this. And the new budget is going to make sure that he can pursue that. After decades of pledges and annual summits from Kyoto to Sharm el-Sheikh, the planet keeps getting hotter. Not according to Bill Gates, but anyways, he doesn't matter anymore, does he? And pressure on governments and big business to act, not just talk, has never been greater. Holding COP30 in Belém at the edge of the world's largest tropical rainforest, well, it's a little smaller now, underscores the stakes. The Amazon region is both a vital carbon sink and a front line in the fight against deforestation and climate change. So it's a fight against deforestation. They're down there cutting 10,000 hectares to put in a 13-kilometer highway, 4-lane highway for these clowns to drive over. Plus they paved over a canal. Can you believe that? So this year's meeting aims to shift gears. Delegates will review national climate plans, push for $1.3 trillion a year. There's the dollar sign right there. They want that in climate finance. Adopt new measures to help help countries adapt and advance a just transition to cleaner economies. This is getting serious. This is their kill strike, eh? COP30, it's been billed as a turning point, moment of truth, and a test of global solidarity. They want every country involved in this. The summit opens on Monday. Against a backdrop, scientists say the planet is on course to temporarily breach the 1.5 degrees Celsius warming limit set by the Paris Agreement. That overshoot could still be short-lived, experts warn, but only if countries act fast to ramp up efforts on cutting emissions, adapting to climate impacts, and mobilizing finance. More money. Folks, Canada's in for a really rough ride here. U.S. is staying out of this. Canada, we're going down. Speaking at the Leaders Summit, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was blunt. It's no longer time for negotiations. It's time for implementation, implementation, and implementation. This guy's dangerous. Under Brazil's presidency, COP30 will revolve around an action agenda of 30 key goals. 30 key goals, each driven by an activation group tasked with scaling up solutions. That's why they need the $1.3 trillion. The effort has been dubbed Mutirão, an indigenous word meaning collective task, reflecting Brazil's push to spotlight indigenous leadership and participation at the conference and the global fight against climate change. They want all sectors, from indigenous communities to business leaders, to help deliver on past climate promises. So anything any was promised before, they want it delivered on now, this year, 2026. They want $1.3 trillion in investments every year by 2035. Scale is enormous. So I'm not going to go any farther into that article, but that's just a lowdown on how the United Nations is feeling about things. Antonio Guterres wants $1.3 trillion every year. It's the the clear-cut climate fest. Clear Cut Climate Fest. It's called the Clear Cut COP30 Clear Cut. Is the name that's being given to it now. Mark Moreno, he's going to Brazil for the Clear Cut 30, UN's Clear Cut 30 Climate Fest. 100,000 Amazon trees felled for his summit. Gates retreats from alarmism. He's going into... Gates needs the power. He needs electricity for his AI. So he's backed off on this climate crap. So here's do a little video here. Maybe not. I thought that would come up. They're not. Oh yeah, there it is.
$500,000 Americans dead regularly if we don't deal with this climate disaster?
That's right. The death toll would be even worse near the equator, and the unrest, would be global in nature. We've got to start work now to avoid those terrible consequences much later.
Okay, that was billionaire Bill Gates. He had said for decades climate change is going to kill everybody, but Microsoft's co-founder just did a big 180. He now says climate change will not destroy humanity. It will not lead to humanity's demise, despite having spent billions of dollars pushing a climate disaster. Joining us now, ClimateDepot.com executive editor Mark Moreno. Mark, it's great to see you again. What's your reaction to this? Because Bill Gates even wrote a book about a climate disaster. Why is he saying this now? I quote, people will be able to live and thrive on Earth for the foreseeable future. Why is he saying this now?
Yeah, it's amazing. There's several key reasons why he's saying it now. But before I just mention that, I just want to say climate catastrophe canceled by Bill Gates. He is facing massive blowback from his fellow climate activist, Michael Mann from the University of Pennsylvania is very upset with him. And he has turned against all the delegates coming up at this UN climate summit in Brazil. And the reasons are very simple. A, you had decades of false promises. First of all, fake deadlines, tipping point, and this is going to happen. Florida will be underwater. The Arctic will be ice free. And secondly, solar and wind are cheaper, about to take over, and all of these lies. Europeans realize it now. Canada, even though their prime minister's World Economic Forum has zeroed out the carbon tax in Canada. So Bill Gates is reading the room. The second reason is this Trump effect. Trump is decimated. First 100 days, 100 actions that decimate the entire climate agenda. And there's been no real pushback to that. Bill Gates reads it. The CNN pollster said Americans are no more afraid of climate than they were in the 1980s. That's how much progress all the nonsense Bill Gates pushed. And the key reason, though, is AI. That's why he's pushing. That's why he's shifting his position. He's getting in good with the Trump administration. They need energy, power. They need fossil fuels. Larry Fink had actually said solar and wind can't power AI.
So is climate change an issue? Let me back up. Bill Gates lobbied Joe Biden's White House to spend hundreds of billions of dollars for climate change, mostly on calls to go nowhere boondoggles. So, but now the CNN, you're right, Harry Enton says just Americans rank, just 2% of Americans say it's an issue. So what is it now that he wants to make money on AI with the Trump White House?
Well, that could be part of it. He hopes for a contract, but more importantly, he has a deal with trying to get a deal with 3 Mile Island nuclear plant. He needs massive amounts of energy, and massive amounts of energy are completely contrary to the climate agenda. So it just doesn't work. But what's interesting is he is so invested. This is a very unbelievable transition because Bill Gates knew in the year 2000 that the climate agenda was complete bleep. He knew in 2010 it was nonsense. He knew in 2020 it was nonsense. But only in 2025 is he willing to tell the truth. And the reason is he needs connections, he needs energy, and he's got his eyes on a site. It's like RFK said, the more money that Bill Gates gives away in his version of philanthro-capitalism, the wealthier he becomes. So he's used all of this. He's a master manipulator behind the scenes.
Got it. ClimateChange.com's Mark Moreno, thank you so much. We're showing live shots
Thank you, Liz.
of the President and the First Lady.
Well, it's funny, the the climate king has actually crashed, but they're still sticking to their guns because the UN's not going to give up on it, are they? They'll coronate somebody else to take the place. Uh, Here we go on the fake meat, which was another flop.
Joining me with his thoughts, Mark Morano, the executive director of the ClimateDepot.com. Mark, you just gotta love how he just doesn't mince words with this stuff. And also, this was this was China. You were doing China's bidding, right?
Yes, this was an incredible story. Came out of nowhere, surprised everyone who watches the whole UN. I mean, this was a shocking development. $300 billion net zero decarbonized shipping, and it was legally binding. Like, what? This wasn't even a pledge. And so what happened was this was going to necessitate the requirement of a whole fleet of new ships to meet these net zero climate UN regulations. Well, let's play that out. Who would we buy these ships from? Where would all these new ships come from? Bingo! China is the number one shipbuilder in the world. This was a way to create market demand for China. China, of course, initially supported this shipping tax. And then the Trump administration went into fast mode with Marco Rubio, with Donald Trump himself threatening tariffs, regulations, punitive punishments in any countries. And they were able to do a last-minute derail, but it's only been tabled till next year. So can you imagine? The election had gone. Elections have consequences because this could have easily gone the other way, and this would have been in a Democrat administration. This would have been guaranteed.
Oh, they would have loved it, and thank God President Trump stopped it, looked out for our national security, and also for the consumers. Let's move to another topic because this is another one that just brings me so much joy. The plant-based company, it's a plant-based meat company, and apparently, and this is the one that Al Gore and Bill Gates all got behind. There's huge investments into this. Don't you want to eat meat, but it's actually fake meat and it's filled with all this weird stuff and cellulose and seed oils? Well, it turns out people don't want this stuff, and their stock is plunging. Look at this.
Yes, it's absolutely stunning what's happened here. And I'd say you want to give credit to one person, RFK Jr. RFK Jr. has educated the public about nutritional values of food, and anyone buying this Beyond Meat was doing it, climate, I'm eating healthier. Even the CNN nutritionist went through this meat and said, there's 22 ingredients in here. It's high in saturated fat. This is ultra processed pea isolates and proteins and seed oils. It was disgusting. It went from an almost $8 billion corporation down to I think it's 80 million in debt now. Al Gore was instrumental in promoting this. This was all part of the anti-meat agenda. The UN Secretary General actually said we have to start having separate sections in restaurants for people who eat meat. The solution was this fake meat. Bill Gates, of course, pushing the lab-grown meat right now. But this is a complete rejection of this processed laboratory goo that the big corporations have been trying to push on the public.
People don't want to eat these science experiments, which, by the way, you've always been so good on pointing out how this is also another scam, a way for them to make money by telling us not to eat what we know is good for us. You we're going to go really quick. You credited RFK, I agree, but also social media health influencers have educated young people. They are not falling for this stuff. They want their red meat. Mark Morano, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Well, we've still got the Bovier, I think it's called. Bovier, the feed for the cows to stop flatulence. So they're pushing that. I think Canada has been on board. I would not doubt that in the least. It's not one thing, it's something else all the time, right? These governments. Control, control, control. That's what it's all about. We're going to tell you what to do, and we're going to tell them what to do, right? So, it doesn't end. We had, well, speaking of that, let's see. I'm going to No, I'll save that for later. Okay, moving on. I'm going to go to this X and this reprobate mind. Okay, you've heard that term before if you read the book. People will be taken over with a reprobate mind. This is a great example. This is gator gum. This thing is just disgusting. Her bio, she has a mask on. She still has that. She says, people are literally comparing the ostriches to the Holocaust. People are tweeting saying soon the government will be doing this to people. The hyperbolic fear-mongering is so out of control. Who believes this crap? Well, I like the replies, and people should be going onto Blue Sky to hammer them because X is being hammered with these liberal trolls. Pure love. People are tweeting saying soon the government will be doing this to people because they already are doing that to people. Because this guy here, he says, I don't want to go, but I don't want to be homeless. Canadian man, 65, has a doctor's approval for euthanasia, despite admitting becoming poor is the main reason he wants it. So the guy here, he's on his scooter, and he's in bad health, and he can't handle being poor, so he's going to take the government solution. This was an article, a poster from David Creighton, but it's a video. I'm not going to play that video right now. BC ostrich farm developing antibodies that could put an end to coronavirus. And then there's this famous front page from the Toronto Star, the headlines, I have no empathy left for the willfully unvaccinated, let them just go, right? There's some words I don't want to say in here because I'm being really, really controlled by YouTube. Simmering divide over who isn't vaccinated. Unvaccinated patients do not deserve ICU beds. Air Canada staff who don't get jabbed face dismissal. Stick the unvaccinated in a tent outside and tend to them when the staff has time. Yeah. You see that? This is the view here of what the aftermath after they were done with the target practice. So you people wanted the unvaccinated to be called only a few short years ago. Chris Dacey. I'm gonna play Chris Dacey's video here. His latest is his conversation with or interaction rather with the RCMP. Keep trying to make the decimation of another farm non-essential. Yes, people are upset. Yes, it's horrific. And yes, some are having a hard time dealing with it. Showing empathy isn't a liberal trait. Lynn Bison. This is a very emotional charged issue. Watching untested healthy animals being shot with 950 rounds of ammo over 4.5 hours will do that. It is normal to have very extreme reactions, but facts are the same. No illness for 300 days, no testing at all, seizing neighbor land. This video here is the latest with Chris Dacey, and this is just so disgusting. The RCMP are just... I can't say words on here to describe them, how I feel about them. And I've had these feelings for quite a while about them. I'm talking quite a few years. I'll go here and bring this up. Here's Chris here. These guys have got no morals at all. They're government stooges.
This is recording live? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay. This is going to be a warning for a section of the criminal code.
Okay.
Okay, so section 423.1 sub 1. No person shall, without lawful authority, engage in any conduct with the intent to provoke a state of fear in a justice system participant or military justice system participant in order to impede him or her in the performance of his or her duties. Okay?
Okay, so can you explain what do you mean by a justice system participant?
So that'd be anybody that's a peace officer.
Okay, so does that law apply to you as well? Because people have been doing that to everyone here, including myself.
I'm not going to speak to that.
Well, who can speak to that? So who sent you here? This is a formal warning?
That's a formal warning. So should we find more stuff online?
Well, okay, well, please, I don't know what you're talking about. What online are you
Based on
referring to?
everything that we've been seeing online as well.
That you've been seeing yourself?
Yes, I've seen.
Okay, and then explain to me what you've seen.
Harassment of members as well as possible doxing.
Doxing. Explain. I haven't doxed a single person, ever.
Have you approached anybody doxing?
Not one, definitely not. I would never do a thing like this. I've been doing this a long time. My work.
Should you
My work.
whatever actions that happen?
Okay, I would like your names and badge numbers. I need cards, and you need to talk to my lawyer. Can you move your radio? So after you guys have been
found online.
should what be found online?
If you post my rights number online and encourage people.
I have never done anything like that.
I'm just saying.
Anything that happens in my comment feed has nothing to do with me, for one. I have never done a thing like that. You guys are public figures, and you are harassing and terrorizing people here after a mass slaughter. Not all right. No, it's not.
What have I done?
I don't know what you've
What
done.
have I done?
Your officers have been doing that. Your officers have been doing that.
For,
So what, you wait till I'm out and you come sneak up on me on the road, Sergeant?
that's the biggest
You know,
thing
a lot of
in the
people have my
day.
number.
Exactly what you're
Listen,
saying.
Yeah, I can't talk to you.
You just rolled up on me and came across the street, right? You have my number. The
And then
PLTs
I-
all have my number. Why didn't one of them talk to me?
This is the one.
Yeah.
I don't know what more you want me to say.
I don't want you to say anything. I want you to think about what you're doing. I want to
Why
think
did-
about your officers, what they're doing. What you're accusing me of is what your officers have been doing here, and I have hours of video. And that's why you're really here, because your superiors are pissed off. Go after Sergeant Mike Rude, too, and threaten him some more. The guy that your PLTs terrorized and kicked out of the fucking Legion. Well, you should know. If you know that much about me, you should damn well know what else is going on here, right?
I'm just here to speak to you.
Well, other people are here. Anything else to say, Sergeant?
No, I said that we needed this.
Okay, well then you can disengage then if you've done your work.
Okay, that's fine. It's
Well,
So, how disgusting was that? Just typical, isn't it? Come in and threaten a guy. He didn't do anything. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't exaggerated. It's all been actual video. So, they don't like that. They're getting a black eye. They came after Pierre. They're still after Pierre. So, they're government stooges. Starts at the top, just like Pierre said. It's the brass at the top. And it's not... I mean, these guys are dickheads. There's no doubt about it. And the bigger one they are, the more pips they get on their shoulder. So, I don't know, it's just... And they're still there harassing the owners. So, I don't know. And then, this week has been a crazy week in the government and parliament, because we had the floor crosser, one resignation, but people are exaggerating that too, and claiming that, oh, there's a whole bunch more going to cross the floor. They're all upset with Pierre and conservatives, but mainly Pierre, and it's all a bunch of garbage. Apparently there was rumors that Carney had been, not just Carney, the Liberals had been badgering their new MP, for a long time to come over to their side. So, okay. So anyways, I'm just glancing at the chat here. There's a video of, let me go here. Pierre had an event talking to the Canada's National Podium of Record. It's the Business Club of Canada or something like that, I think it is. Meanwhile, Carney was just down the street having his event, and that had about half the people show up for Carney. I don't think people really wanted to listen to him. They're probably seeing what they could get out of him. So I'll bring up Carney. This is a short clip because it was posted by
One of my questions.
It was posted by Pierre. It's only a minute and a half or something. That's plenty to have to listen to this clown. I'll bring this up. The guy doesn't answer. He just stumbles through this.
Is this pipeline going to come? So
boring.
it's not actually.
It is. No, but it is because it's. Don't worry, we're on it. We're on it.
And
but there is
who's
this
going up
whole.
to that party?
Okay, hands up. Who's working on the pipeline in this room? Okay.
Isn't
Right.
that a problem?
No. Look at all the variety. Like, Nav, does your we have.
Yeah, if there's more prosperity, they'll get more cell phone services.
But look. Okay, so what's going to drive one of the things with? Yeah, don't worry. We're on the pipeline stuff. Danielle's on line 1. Don't worry, it's going to happen. But something's going to happen. Let's put it that way. It's not very good negotiating by my perspective. But what some in the room will unlock on the data center side, the intelligence infrastructure side, will have a much bigger impact on productivity in this country. Will have a much bigger impact on our standard of living. And advantaging that, which is what we're doing with the productivity super deduction. Like, it's an easy conversation to have about a pipeline because it's one thing we can see. But the reality is that there's much, much more to the Canadian economy, and there's much, much more to the future of the Canadian economy. And so we're attacking it on all sides.
Wasn't a whole lot said there, was there? And what pipeline is he talking about you can actually see? He's not having any. So, but then Pierre drew a huge crowd. Massive crowd.
And Dan.
I'll bring this up here now and we'll take a look at that. This is what Pierre's going to say. No, this is fairly long. It's going to be about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. But he's got a lot to say here. Makes a lot of sense, too. So here we go.
And Dan. Dan, you all know as an incredible entrepreneur who founded a great business, merged it with another one, leads 3,000 incredible employees. But of course, his biggest achievement is as a father, 6 kids. He took go forth and multiply literally. And recently he had a little one, baby Sadie, him and Morgan. And there was a tense moment. After baby Sadie was born, she came out, and the dreadful silence. No cry, no murmur, no nothing. And Morgan and Dan didn't know what was happening. The doctor said, "Don't worry, I know exactly what to do." He picked up baby Sadie and whispered something in her ear, and out came a roar, as if from a lioness. And the baby went on to cry for hours and hours without stopping. Later that day, Dan went to the doctor and said, "What did you tell my poor little girl that made her cry so much?" And he said, "I just told her that her share of the national debt is $32,000. So, but in all truth, the story of Genuity and ultimately Canaccord is the story of great Canadian enterprise. Not just Canadian business, but enterprise of all kinds. It's the story of someone who has an idea, takes a risk, mortgages his house, works all day and all night, wonders how he's going to meet the payroll, only to build something successful so that he can pay lots of tax to the silent partner, which is the government. But more than that, to create more competition and vibrance, to serve more customers, to finance more deals, to make it possible for factories, mines, pipelines, high-tech enterprises to get the upfront money that is needed to start. And that story bleeds over to the story of the worker who struggles through poverty to get a trade and get a job, maybe join the United Association of Pipe Fitters, who are represented here by Nathan Bergstan, and work hard building the country. We've all been blessed, those of us in this room, to grow up in the best country on earth, a country that we were raised to believe was filled with limitless possibility, that if we worked hard, we could have a great life. We could start at the bottom and climb to the top. That in this country, anything was possible. And that it didn't matter where you started, it mattered where you were going. It didn't matter who you knew, it mattered what you can do. And this country can be that again. In fact, my firm belief is with the resources we have beneath our feet, the land we have across our country, and the people who populate that majestic land, we should be the richest country on planet Earth, and that should be our goal. Think about it. We got the third biggest supply of oil. We're the fifth in natural gas. Number one in uranium, potash. We have the longest oceanic coastline, the most fresh water anywhere on Earth. We have by far the shortest shipping distance from the Americas to both Europe and Asia. We have the cold weather to reduce the cost of these massive data centers. We have the energy to power those centers. We have literally everything it takes to have the highest quality of living. And those kinds of resources and the economic data that flows from it means real things to real people. In such an economy, it would be easy for young people to afford homes. Single mothers would walk down grocery aisles and fill their cart with the things they want their children to eat, not the things that they can afford and don't have to turn back when they get to the checkout because the prices are too high. A country like the one I've described would mean that everybody would own a home with a yard, and every single night there'd be meat and potatoes on the dinner table. Those are the practical benefits that come from having a strong economy that produces low cost but high quality goods. That was the promise of Canada. But that promise is now broken. Look around you. Housing costs have more than doubled in the last 10 years, rising faster than in any other G7 country. In fact, housing prices have increased about 30% faster than incomes, the biggest gap of any OECD nation. We now have an entire generation, for the first time ever, that believes they will never be able to afford a home. This has never happened before. Food bank use has more than doubled in the last 10 years. One food bank leader said that it took a century and a half to get to 1 million visits a month. And in the last 5 years, that number has more than doubled to 2.2 million. So in 5 years, we have added more monthly food bank users than we had in the previous 150 years. To show the human cost of this, today a poll came out saying 20% of Canadians are not paying their bills so that they can afford to feed their families. We have malnutrition. We have 10% of our country that told a food bank survey recently that they are skipping meals sometimes for an entire day because they can't afford to eat. This, of course, is the result of a costly government. Costly government drives up the cost of living. Now, in the last election, Mark Carney promised that he was going to be different. The Liberal Party was, see, the lights are going out because the energy prices are so high. It's that industrial carbon tax again. But Mr. Carney was going to be the tight-fisted banker. He was going to be nothing like Justin Trudeau. He made so many promises. And yet, what have been the results of all these promises? First, he promised that he would negotiate a win with the Americans. By July 21st, he would have a deal. Still no win, still no deal, still no elbows, still no jobs. Here we are, after he promised that he would, quote unquote, invest more. This week's budget showed that investment has collapsed in all 3 fiscal quarters for which he has been prime minister. He said he'd double home building. Now his government agency, the CMHC, says home building will drop by 13% over the next several years. And he said that he would spend less. That was one of his 2-word slogans. He was after me for having 3-word slogans. His were just 2, so he was at least more parsimonious with words. But spend less. Did you see the budget? The deficit is 100% more. He's literally doubled the deficit that Justin Trudeau left behind for this year and for the next 5 years. The deficit, as Dan pointed out, this year will be $78 billion, twice the $41 billion that Trudeau had projected, $16 billion higher than Carney promised during the election campaign. And over the next 5 years, the government expects, and this is without any new spending in any of those 4 future budgets, they expect to add $1/3 of $1 trillion of additional debt. This will be the most costly 5 years, if it is allowed to happen, in any of Canada's history. And make no mistake, this is not due to the falling revenue from the trade war. It is due to increased government spending. Mr. Carney has added $141 billion of new spending measures. These are decisions by his government to add new costs that were not budgeted before, in exchange for which he promises to find about $50 billion of savings. So even if he keeps his promise to find the savings and to contain the spending at the aforementioned levels, that will mean a net increase in costs of $90 billion, which works out to about $5,400 for every family in Canada. And let's not make any mistake. Canadians will pay for this. The government has no money. It cannot give you anything it does not take away. Every dollar the government spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. The more they spend, the more things cost. They only have 3 ways of paying for things: with taxes, with debt, and with money printing inflation. Either way, the Canadian people get the bill. And this promise-breaking budget by Mark Carney is the single most expensive for Canadians, who will be paying the price in higher food costs, higher home prices, and other increases in their cost of living.
I believe everything he's saying there is factually true. I think we're in for a very rough ride. And I don't think it's going to get better for a long time. Even with a change of government, it's, look, we've had a decade of destruction. It's going to take a decade to come out of it. It's going to take 4 or 5 years to get a pipeline built if it was approved today. If we have to go through 3 or 4 years of this government, that means, yeah, it'd be a decade. So we're not going to get out of it with solar panels and windmills, that's for sure. Money is going to be sent to the UN, money's going to be sent to Europe, money's going to be sent to Africa, to the Middle East, to, hey, pick a country around the world. That's where the money's going. So they can't give enough money away fast enough and can't pour enough money into this climate crap, even though Billy Gates said, no, forget it. It's, sorry. Not sorry, but, it's, let's move on. But nope, no. It's gonna get rough out there. Now, this I wanted to show you this. It's on my other screen here. I'll have to bring it up. And this is, you'll hear Pierre talk about the professor, and the liberals snicker and giggle at it, right? But no, he's professor is on his game. So this is the website here. So the website is CanadianGrocer.com. It gets you into his website. It's got a lot of information. I noticed here down here it says Maple Leaf Foods report a 43.1 million third quarter profit. Sales up 8% from a year ago. But then I look back up here and it says Maple Leaf Foods to increase retail prices amid high meat costs. Despite strong third quarter, higher cost of raw materials dented its earnings. So, yeah, they weren't really happy with their $43 million, $43.1 million profit in the third quarter. They're going to jack the food price up. So, now I want to go to something else here. There's so much on here. There's new stores, new on the shelf, worth reading. This measuring the tariff effect. Apparently the tariff is not really affecting too much the price of food. It's more organic. It's more localized. And budget 2025. Forgot about your grocery bill. So 4 things to know about fermented foods. I found that quite informative myself. So if you want to go check out the Food Professor, that's a good site. What else did I have here? There was, okay. The digital ID was something else I was looking at, and this is the actual Government of Canada website on digital ID, and it ain't pretty. Says, trusted access to digital services. People in Canada expect easy, secure, and trusted access to online services, including when they interact with the government. Okay, so that's talking about Government of Canada sign in and Government Canada issue and verify. That's the Canadian Digital Service. The CDS is building platforms that will support access to seamless and secure digital services in Canada. So you get a sign in with your digital ID into the government site. Trust me, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Secure, inclusive, and user-friendly. Right. It's, I wouldn't be put too much trust in that. So anyways, they want to give you the little sales pitch on it here on the issue and verify and the benefits. There's benefits according to them. Platforms are optional. You don't have to do it yet. Using these platforms is completely voluntary. People can choose to keep accessing their services the way they prefer, such as over the phone or in person at Service Canada offices. Remember when it becomes voluntary? Something like the shots. Oh, they're voluntary, but oh, by the way, you can't get on a plane, you can't get on a bus, you can't get on a train. Ha ha ha, Trudeau. And gee, we kind of like to keep you out of the grocery store if we could, and you're banned from restaurants and bars, but it is voluntary. Secure behind the scenes advanced tools will monitor for unusual activity from suspicious sign-ins to unauthorized access attempts. I thought they had secure websites. They say their websites are secure, so why do you now all of a sudden you need this digital ID? Because they're saying what? They're not secure? I think they're lying. Privacy protecting. The CDS is working closely with privacy experts to design a service that's consistent with the Privacy Act and the Department of Employment and Social Development Act. It's a Privacy Act while they're snooping on it. It's convenient. Oh, don't give up your security or your safety or your rights for convenience. These platforms will help people spend less time navigating red tape and more time focusing on what matters. How about just getting rid of the red tape? No, they want the digital IDs. What's next? CDS is committed. This is the bottom line. To working in the open to design and deliver trusted, secure services. This means sharing progress as these platforms are developed. So they're going to share this. Who are they going to share it with? In the coming months, CDS will work with partner departments to test features for GC sign-in and GC issue and verify. Like all digital products, CDS will be taking an incremental approach. An incremental approach. It's going to keep coming on more and more, gathering feedback from people to improve the platforms. What platforms? Oh, the social media platforms, of course. This ensures we're building platforms that meet the needs of service providers and the people using their services. I think that's doublespeak. So anyways, have no fear. Digital ID is near. So they're on it. They need that control. They are communist control freaks. Nick Dworchik, I haven't heard PP talk ill of that yet. Well, there's actually, I'm going to go back a bit to this one here and play the end of it with Pierre. Okay, because it does come up. So there's a few more minutes of this, and he's sitting down answering some questions.
Thank you, Pierre.
Good to be with you.
Very
Looking good.
Thank you. Thank you.
You
too.
know,
Fresh.
Most people come into this world, they're born, but Michael was actually chiseled out of a big block of marble, and you can see what's the secret?
What's the secret? Dad bod. New dad bod.
Impressive. But I haven't seen a lot of dad bods like that. But
well, thank you. Thank you to the Economic Club for bringing us together at such a pivotal time in Canada's economy. And I don't know if you know this or if our guests know this, but the Prime Minister is actually just a block away right now.
We should invite him over. We have a great chat.
Some great ideas he might be able to borrow.
That's right.
But you know, Pierre, your event sold out faster and with more tickets. So for the economists in the room, I guess that's demand and the market has spoken. So maybe it's right here.
God bless free enterprise.
So Pierre, we're going to talk a little bit about policy, about politics and personal, but I want to start a little bit on personal. You and I are friends, but a lot of people in the audience are just still getting to know you. Your most important job outside of being leader of the opposition is as a committed father to Valentina and Cruz and a husband to the wonderful Anna. So my first question, you and Anna have been together for many years through campaigns, kids, and in the public eye. What has she taught you most through all of it?
Stay grounded. Definitely stay grounded. She comes from very humble beginnings. Obviously, she came as a refugee fleeing Venezuela, and they had to start from scratch. She was raised in a working class neighborhood in East End Montreal, tiny basement apartment, and she left home at 17 moved to Ottawa, worked at Best Buy, got a job in the west end of town selling electronics in English, even though she didn't speak English at the time. And that taught her how to solve problems and get things done. But she also reminds me that, no matter how high and mighty we in politics might think we are, it's the strivers like her family that we're working for. And our mission is to unlock their potential and give them the best possible lives. So she keeps me grounded and makes sure that the ego is always in check. And I think that's a healthy thing for any politician.
That's good to hear. She sounds like she'd be a great campaign manager.
She's not. She manages much more complicated operations, like getting the kids out the door in the morning and She produces an incredible magazine. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have.
Beautiful magazine, and she's a great writer, and she's founded her own businesses. So very talented, brilliant young woman.
Wonderful. And you said before that everything you do is about giving your kids and their generation the shot at the same opportunities that you had. What do you think has changed most for young families in Canada?
I just think the things that we used to take for granted are now out of reach, and the basic ambitions like starting a family, owning a house, having nutritious food every night, those are things that if you had a job at a university, you knew you would be able to do. But like in the last 10 years, we've come to a place where it is literally impossible for youth to own homes in our biggest centers and increasingly even in our small towns. And that is totally unnecessary. I call it the promise of Canada. It's better than the American dream. American dream is kind of, you wake up from a dream, but a promise is something that is honored if you do your part of the bargain. Our youth today are doing more than their part of the bargain. They are working longer than probably any generation before them since the Second World War to get less and less. And I want to ensure that they know that they don't have to live like this. They can demand better from their country. They deserve homes, jobs, and hope. And that's what we're going to deliver for them.
Well, that sounds great. There's a lot of impediment to achieving that, and some of that you saw in the budget. And it speaks to how we grow and govern this country. So maybe we'll step next into some policy. Because after all the buildup that we heard, this Carney budget was billed as transformative, right? Once in a generation, a reset for growth, productivity, and fiscal discipline. But the reaction from business has so far been clear. The numbers don't match that narrative. Deficits are large and climbing, debt is getting worse, and the so-called investment agenda is just more rebranding of spending. So let's start there. If you were presenting your own first budget today, how would you make real fiscal discipline the watchword again, and how would you stimulate growth?
So the great Thomas Sowell said the number one rule of economics is scarcity. There's never enough to satisfy every want. And he said the number one rule of politics is to ignore the number one rule of economics. And that's what this government has done. And frankly, it's what all governments do, because they're always spending other people's money. There's an inherent discipline in a household or business budget because you're spending your own money or that volunteered to you by your investors. There is no such discipline in government. So that governments think with and. I'll have this and this and this and this and this, an all-you-can-eat buffet. I want to bring in an either-or discipline, where every time government brings in a new spending item, they have to match it with an equal savings. I call it the dollar-for-dollar law. The Americans brought this in the Clinton era, 1994. They had a balanced budget by 1998. They paid off $400 billion of debt. But as soon as that law, they called it the PAYGO law, as soon as it lapsed, the American government went back in deficit, has not emerged since. So we have to reinstate scarcity within the government so that politicians have to make the same either-or trade-offs that single moms, seniors, and small businesses make every single day.
Right. It feels like there's just more and more debt right now for spending, right? They can just keep digging into debt, and what you're saying is the trade-off has to be there, which is an incentive that's not in government right now.
If there's a big hive of waste somewhere in a department, the minister today has no incentive to go and root it out. There's no political benefit to him. He's going to anger his bureaucracy, maybe some interest groups. But if you said to that same minister, you cannot bring a memorandum to cabinet seeking more spending unless you show up with an equal amount of savings, well, then he'd have to go into his department and find the ways. So let's impose the same scarcity on politicians that we impose, that is all naturally imposed on every other creature in the universe.
Right, and it's the same incentives that exist in the private sector. It's just putting some incentives around constraint and scarcity. You've talked a lot about unleashing investment and productivity. The areas of this budget that have largely been sidestepped, beyond cutting spending, what's the single most powerful lever you'd pull to get people actually investing in Canada again? Is it regulation? Is it taxation? What are the big things you can move here?
Well, let's get rid of capital gains tax on any reinvestments in Canada. There's $500 billion of net investment that is left from Canada to the U.S. over the last 5 years alone. If you said to all the companies that have invested to the south of the border, bring the money home and you won't pay any tax, that'd be an enormous incentive for them to do it.
Huge.
And then they'd have to also be able to do something with that money. So we need to go from 19-year approval times for a mine to 19 months. We need to go to rapid building permits and other regulatory approvals. This should be the fastest. Why don't we set a goal? Bring all the mayors and premiers and the prime minister in one room and say, let's set a goal. Let's have the fastest building permits anywhere in the developed world, right here in Canada. I can tell you that would bring home a ton of investment immediately.
We've heard from the Carney government promises about hitting timelines, about things like pipelines and productivity, but those promises keep slipping. What do you think they're getting wrong, and how do you think you could do it better?
It's not clear they want these things to get built. I mean, Mark Carney's now been prime minister for 7 years, and he still won't say that he favors building another, it feels like 7 years. I meant to say 7 months. It's been the same policy for 10 years. But he still won't say in 7 months whether he favors building an oil pipeline. He has not said that. He said he wants to use conventional energy. Well, you know, depending on how you define it, windmills can mean affordable, can mean conventional energy. So when you have a prime minister who's 7 months in, 7 months after promising to build things at unimaginable speeds, still won't say if he even supports the possibility of building an oil pipeline, it's clearly not going to get done under his watch. I would use the powers in Bill C-5 to set out a path and pre-approve a pipeline so that private sector could come with permitting certainty, knowing that they already have the approval to get it built. And let's get rid of all the anti-development laws and taxes, C-69, C-48, the industrial carbon tax, and the list goes on. Get rid of all of that so that even the projects that politicians have not identified explicitly can go together, go ahead in a free market.
So we've seen it, we were talking about credibility and government projections earlier. We've seen it again and again in the last decade, actually, that governments, successive governments, including the one you mentioned, the budget this year being twice what it was last year and what it was projected. Spending projections are climbing higher and higher every year, and fiscal anchors seem pretty malleable, or at least they're not as anchoring as we once thought they were. And reliability because of that is slipping, and the market loses faith in the government and the government's own projections because of that. How do we bring back credibility to the government in terms of those projections so that the market and participants can better understand where this country's going?
Well, it's as simple as delivering on the promise. You know, they broke another anchor in this budget. The election promise the Liberals had was lowering the debt to GDP ratio, and yet the debt to GDP ratio will rise over the next 5 years. They originally said it would be a $10 billion deficit, nothing more, and it went up to $300 billion. They said it would be a balanced budget after 3 years, and here we are 10 years later, and there's more deficit. So, I'd love to give you a programmatic answer, but the answer is you just need a prime minister who will actually set a plan, stick to the plan, and then the market will see very quickly that they've got someone who's minding the store.
Moving on to housing and competitiveness, because these are national economic choke points, really. It's not just social ones anymore. If you were designing the growth agenda through the budget, and you talked a little bit about the reforms to housing and permitting, but what's the one reform that would make the biggest difference to getting things to actually work?
No tax on home building. We're right there. In Ontario, it's, I don't know, John Love's over there. How much is the tax on a home, John? Okay, it's a third. John Love says that it's the right answer, so I'm going to shut up now.
Well informed, yeah. Right. So you got to take the tax off the builders who are making the homes and make it easier for capital flow and capital formation. On top of that, this has really caused. I said it was an economic choke point, but it's also a social choke point. There's a big frustration in the younger generation, and you see it bubbling up through different elections in the Western Hemisphere. Younger people feel frustrated. They feel locked out of capitalism. They feel the system's failing them. How do we make them active participants again in capitalism? And how do we share we're at the economic club, share the idea that the benefits of capitalism can flow to everyone?
So I believe the fundamental problem in the Western world that's leading to the divide between rich and poor is not that there's too much free enterprise. The contrary, I believe that it's monetary expansion. Massive monetary inflation is inflating the assets of the super rich while destroying the purchasing power of the working class. I was at a very modest cafe in rural PEI, and I asked the lady, how much is that espresso machine? She says it cost 11 grand. That's a commercial grade, but it wasn't anything super fancy. Lady on the other end of the counter said, well, when I moved to Montreal in 1969, I bought a house for 9 grand. She bought her house for fewer dollars nominally than the coffee machine cost today. And I said to this lady, how much did you and your husband make that year? She said, oh, we made about 18 grand. So it was about 6 months earnings equivalent to buy a house in Montreal in 69, 70. Well, 1971 hits, and all monetary discipline was thrown out the window when Nixon closed the gold window, and governments have been printing money rampantly and increasing the money supply 3-4 times the rate of the supply of the goods and services money buys. This balloons government, balloons asset prices, but most importantly, it destroys the purchasing power of working people, and especially young people who don't have inflation-proof assets to protect them. And that is the fundamental reason why I think there's so much frustration in this generation. We've got to fix our money so our youth can have a fair shot.
Let's move on to politics a little bit, Pierre. And we can't talk about politics without, noticing that Canadians now have a bit of a renewed patriotism, a little enhanced. And you can feel it when people sing the national anthem a little louder, and it's not just at Jays games. People are a little louder, a little prouder, and a little more feeling Canadian. We've come together in the face of U.S. Economic tariff threats and the imposition of real threats. What will the threat mean to Canada, and what are the opportunities that arise from it?
Well, look, 75% of our exports go to the United States. We can't ignore the fact that American capitalism is the most powerful economic force in the history of the world, and they're right next door. So our goal should have to be to come to some sort of a deal that will eliminate these tariffs, and in exchange for which we offer a security partnership that will make both of our countries more safe and secure while protecting our sovereignty. It means that we also have to unlock our eastern and western ports, maybe even northern ports, to hit other markets. And that goes back to unlocking our economy and our resources, which are by far our biggest exports. Mr. Carney's literally broken every single promise related to trade. There's not a single, despite 20 trips around the world, he has not reduced a single tariff line in any other foreign country. He was going to open all these foreign markets. There's not one tariff that any country anywhere in the world has reduced on Canada since he became prime minister. So I think we have to get away from all of the photo ops and the grand pronouncements and get back to the practical thing that needs to happen, which is that we got to get our resources out of the ground, on ships, overseas. That's how we respond to the unfair tariffs from a position of strength.
It's good you brought up Trump. I wasn't going to use the expression elbows up, but we all know that dominated the campaign. And there's a different approach now that he's taking. How would you handle Trump? He's a mercurial counterparty.
Well, first of all, nobody can control the President of the United States. It was wrong for Mr. Carney to claim that he would. said he would handle the president, and I think we can all agree that it's been very much the reverse since he took office. We need to get a deal. We need to work with our American friends to get that deal. We need two-way free trade between our countries and to both of our benefits. And my offer to them would be, you trade with us more, we build a greater military that unburdens the Americans of our defense and ensures their northern flank is always more secure from threats by China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, or whomever else. That both our countries will be more secure, stable, and prosperous if we work together. But at the same time, we have to come into a position of strength. If we had two pipelines to both coasts right now, and we were moving 2.5 million barrels a day to Europe and Asia, I can tell you our negotiating leverage will be far, far greater than it is right now with the Americans knowing they have a total monopoly on our energy market.
Moving on to Canadian politics. With this budget, there's chatter around maybe another election coming up. The Liberals moving closer to majority territory with the NDP maybe abstaining. Are we going to have an election in your mind, or when's it going to happen?
Well, I'm better at predicting the past. It's hard to say. The NDP and Bloc both voted against our opposition motion. I don't think that we're going to end up voting for their motion on amending the budget. And so it will depend over the next several days what decisions are made by the various opposition parties. I mean, this really is a budget that the NDP and Bloc would be aligned with because it is a big spending budget. So I would not be surprised to see them vote for all of that spending. It's what they favor. It's their ideological predisposition. Our approach had been to demand an affordable budget so people could afford their lives. We didn't get that. And
they kind of screwed up there at the last minute and cut the audio. So, now, okay, we got a little bit left, and I hate to do this to you, but I'm gonna play something here that it's pretty hard to watch. But you gotta look at the other side of things, right? You gotta pay attention to what the other side is doing. Know what your enemy's up to. Here we go. You'll know as soon as you hear it. I'm not going to play too much of it, folks. Don't worry.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the old show.
Welcome to the O Show, Canada's current affairs show with strong opinions. I'm your host, Laura Babcock, and what a perfect week for the scandal panel to be here. Because when we should be talking about a budget, and we will, there are huge scandals happening. In Poilievre's caucus, I'm losing track of how many MPs are walking away from his failed leadership. We're going to get into his catastrophic week, Canada. We also, of course, have Strippergate swinging around in Ontario. There's probably better jokes that will come from the scandal panel than that one. I did hear about gravy on a pole, but we'll get to all of that. And also in Alberta, we have Danielle Smith having a bit of a meltdown about the whole giant, massive petition and her government's future. So guys, and I can't forget, it's not every day that I have champagne to start an out show, but when I do, it's for a good reason. To watch the Americans wake up from their coma and the first chance they got to vote against Trump and everything MAGA they did, it was one of the most powerful elections off year that's ever happened in the United States. Cheers to the beginning of the end of the MAGA movement. They are in free fall in the US, which means they're in free fall in Canada, and Pierre Pollievre couldn't be falling faster, harder if he tried. And I don't know if he's even trying, guys, because when it came to the big, response to the budget and putting forward the opposition's position, they forgot to even officially do it. So the Bloc swept it. So he's not even showing up. He's not doing his job when he does show up. He's got MPs leaving all over the place. Let's start with Pierre Poilievre's horrible, catastrophic week. And there are rumors now, not just of intimidation of the MPs to stay in his caucus, but that he might be quitting. So, you know what, Keith? Why don't we start with you? Have you seen a week of brouhaha in Ottawa bigger than this? I'm thinking Belinda Stronach, Peter MacKay drama back in the day. I can't think of a bigger, worse week for a caucus than this.
Well, usually budget day, while it's a big day for the government, it's also a big day for the opposition. They get to share the stage. They get to say what's wrong, how their ideas are so much better. And poor Mr. Poilievre, of all days to lose an MP, to have one cross the floor, clearly there was some personal animosity must have been between these two, because you don't cross the floor on budget day to the government side unless you want to kick your leader squarely in the slats, and as hard as you possibly can, and as publicly. Because that means Poilievre, other than in the House of Commons, he couldn't come out to react to the budget. He had to send other people out to react, because all he was going to get asked about how many more MPs you're going to lose. Is your leadership under question? Are you going to survive in January? All this stuff is just going to haunt him now until he does show up. And even if he's got a major new announcement or a new policy or some change of policy, and it's not going to matter. He's going to have to answer these questions. They're going to dog him for quite a while. Terrible week. Then all of a sudden there's one in Edmonton. And he's quitting right away. He's not going to cross the floor. He's quitting as an MP, even though he was just elected. Re-elected. There seems to be a lot of talk about, was he intimidated out of crossing the floor? That he did indeed have talks with the Liberals, which I'm sure anyone in his position would have, and that, why wouldn't you see what's available? So this is just starting to snowball, and it's exactly the kind of thing that Poilievre has been trying to keep his finger in the dike so that this stuff didn't spill out. And ironically, when he didn't have a seat in the House of Commons, he was able to do a better job. Now that the House is back, the cracks are really appearing, and boy, this is a huge, huge challenge for his leadership, and just a crappy week for the guy. And it's still spilling out. And now the journalists are going to be digging in. They're going to call every Conservative MP. They're going to be talking to their supporters. They're going to find out, how did Duchamp do in Nova Scotia? Are his constituents really up in arms? He only won by 1%. Or is it going over kind of with a bit of a shrug? He was the only Nova Scotia Conservative elected. Now they have none. It hurts the party in so many ways.
Yeah, it's brutal. And I got to say, I'm not a journalist anymore, but I do have a source or 20, and I'm getting a lot of intel on the shenanigans, to put it gently, that are going on behind the scenes. So Poilievre put out a statement today wishing the guy in Edmonton luck or whatever. I'm like, that's not how I was hearing it was going down behind closed doors. These MPs who are going to leave caucus, who are in conservative areas, they apparently, rumor has it, reports have it, that they are getting some pressure and threatened with consequences, whatever the hell that means. Nothing shows a leader falling faster, Mark, than when you got it.
This is a propaganda show, right? I'm sure you folks realize that. Desperation and a lot of BS. So we're just going to listen to a little bit more.
Turn on your own people to keep them behind you. That's a sign of absolute freaking failure. And Pierre Pollievre is a failed leader. In fact, the guy who left from the East Coast, wasn't he? He was from, didn't he say that he was leaving because of Poilievre's leadership style? So, everything we've been saying.
Conservatives gained more seats than ever in the last election. And it was because of the NDP just fell apart under Singh, and the traitor Singh. And the buddy from Nova Scotia, he confided in another Conservative MP and a friend of his and said, if there's an election, I'm going to lose my seat. So he crossed the floor. Also, he was just vested for his pension, and then he crossed. Those hours, those pensionable hours, should be deleted. He shouldn't be able to claim those hours once you cross the floor. Anyways, here we go.
Here on the show, everything that we get shit on by the trolls for, we're not wrong.
No.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, I think, the big message for me this week that kept resonating in my mind was, Pierre, let's talk about Canada being broken. Canada's not broken. The Conservative Party of Canada is broken. Severely fractured, severely broken. And I couldn't think of, I've said this from the beginning. I think we kind of agree. I don't think Pierre's going to survive the January leadership thing. I think, the knives are out. And I think people see the contrast with Carney, and they see the writing on the wall that, this guy's not going anywhere. All this posturing this week about, will the budget pass? I'm like, journalists are crazy. They need to create some drama, right? The budget was always going to pass because the NDP are not going to force an election. They don't have a leader. They don't have money. Come on, guys. So, but what, this intimidation stuff, that's a little deeper and a little darker than I think many of us understand. And, the point that I keep thinking about is if he's willing to do this to his own caucus, imagine this guy as prime minister doing this kind of shit to Canadians.
Can I just say that the election speculation by the media, it's just like when the weather storm is coming. We're going to scare you to death for 3 days with the maximum possible rate. And damn it, the storm didn't skip the city yet again. Everyone knows there's not going to be an election, but that was all the coverage post-budget was all election. Oh my God, there's an election before Christmas and second in year. No, we won't.
Never a chance of it. And you know what? I've started doing a new regular weekly segment on 610 with Gene Velitis, and but I think both weeks I'm like let's not even bother talking about it. Like it's not going to happen, right? I had conversations this week with people who can't stand the Liberal Party for its legacy and what it's done to the economy, but voted for Carney because even they as conservatives couldn't stomach Pollievre because they're smart people. If the Conservative Party isn't reading the freaking tea leaves on this and understanding, it's not just that a majority of women can't stand Pollievre, and the misogyny from his supporters that I am subjected to and other women is insane, right? It's not just that women can't stand him. It's also that we can't stand his policies. When someone tried to say this week that, Pollievre was going to help people, poor people on the affordability crisis, I put out a list of all the things he's voted against in 20 years. He's full of shit. And we know that. We have a 20-year record on this guy. He's peevish. He's pathetic. He's now lost control of his own caucus. The stuff he puts out there, outright lies about Canada having war zones, going after the RCMP. I mean, no wonder MPs are crossing the floor. So by my math, we're at 170, I think, for the Liberals. 2 away, aren't we, guys? Mark, from the party?
Yeah, okay. MPs crossing the floor, plural? I don't think so. There was one guy, one trader, that was worried about his pension. That's all that was. And he cried because he didn't get to be deputy speaker of the House. And he was a loser when he was the deputy speaker before. He's just a scum. Anyways, that's enough of them. I don't want to torture you anymore with that bunch. So, what I'm gonna do one more thing here. I'm gonna look up a YouTube channel I'm gonna recommend for everybody, and I will see if I can. How am I gonna do this? I'm gonna bring this up because I highly recommend this video, but I can't give you the link on here right now. And I gotta find it, so just bear with me. It'll take me a minute to find it. Is it? I think this is it, yeah. This guy is good. Very informative. And this just came out. I just watched it the other day. Bring it up. It's called Mind is Free, I think. It's just bear with me. I'm going through all his videos to find this. And it's information that you probably already know. He mentions Jekyll Island and Nixon. Where is it? While I'm looking for it, I see somebody mentioned on there about U.S. Annexing Canada. I can see that happening in the future coming up. Canada is so weak and in such a mess now after all these years of Trudeau. We're in the Trudeau hangover, I call it. See, Trudeau was out promoting the shots, so that the COVID and the flu shot, and he faked it, of course, and he's making money off that. So, where is it here? Try popular. I should have had this looked up before. I could have gave you the link. I'm gonna have to do a search on it. Shouldn't be too hard to do. I'll try that, see if that brings it up. I think this might be it here. Yeah. Okay, I'll show you what I've got here. Sorry about that. Every nation is in debt. So who's the lender? Who owns the money? It's very interesting. It is 43 minutes long. Now it talks about the Federal Reserve, of course. And I always thought, well, that's American, but no, it affects the whole world because of the US dollar being the international currency. So every central bank is tied to the American dollar. So check that out. And it's Mind to Be Free is the channel. That's it there, Mind to Be Free. Wolf is the guy's name. He's responsive. If you leave a comment, like a question, the guy will get back to you, which is good. That you don't get that a lot, so that really impressed me. So if you want to find out if countries are in debt, who do they owe the money to? So this guy here will tell you the goods and take it from there, okay? So, right on. I will say thank you very much for being here for the full duration. It's a little longer. I try to shut it down a little earlier now, but I guess that's just not happening. There's just so much going on. So, well, hopefully we'll get together, see us here next week, and I don't know, I keep saying one of these days you're going to have some good news, but maybe that's wishful thinking. But I hope you have a wonderful week. You can't give up hope, but you just have to look at the facts and deal with what's going on and try to look after yourself, number one, and take it from there. So, bye for now. God bless.